Okay, hello. Good afternoon, welcome. Great to see you all. Last time we did this was 2019, so I'm so happy to be back here at Expo, as I'm sure all you are. Yeah. All right, so we have a lot of content. Unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, we have 3 of our presentations are our partners in China that obviously could not fly here for quarantine reasons and whatnot. So they're recorded videos. If you have any questions that are in relation to those videos, we can keep them till the end. You can contact me, give me those questions. I can relate them. We can get answers to you. But unfortunately, this year they won't be able to be here. Next year, hope they will be here. So let's get started. We got a full show here. Okay, so I'm Jeff Crowther. I'm the executive director of HPA-China. So we're a nonprofit group, and we help companies do business in China. So my topic today is I'm going to talk more about kind of the regulatory aspects of dietary supplements, and just a tiny part, because I know there's some ingredient people here as well, just to talk about ingredients a little bit. So why is China, a good market to still attempt? We've got some points here. Huge consumer base. Consumption is still growing. E-commerce is growing like neck break speed. Really big there, and it's, as we'll see later in the presentation, China is a very hard market to get into on the regulatory aspects of getting approvals and registrations. So cross-border e-commerce is really the way most companies are approaching the China market, so that's awesome. And domestic brands, so we're seeing a lot more domestic companies coming out with ingredients as well as finished products, which was not the case when I was first in China in 2000, 2004 timeframe. So it's really nice to see a lot more domestic companies, which will build a bigger market and a more balanced market with those competitors in there. And the regulations are moving at a snail's pace. I mean, they do move very slowly. We started with a lot of regulatory advocacy back in 2004, all the way through up until recent, and there's only been some very small movements to help companies get products into the market through traditional commerce. So here's the sales. I mean, they're all over the place. What we do is we gathered about 5 or 6 different sources, and those sources are anywhere from up to $70 billion US down to $25 billion. So we estimate the market is probably around $45 billion at this point. And the reason why it's hard to get a solid number for that is it's not completely transparent. There's a lot of things that are happening in China. They're not recorded. Conference selling and direct selling and all these different channels. And there's a lot of overlap between food, health products, traditional Chinese medicine is not so clear. So it's very hard to get numbers out of the market. The one market you can, though, is you can, cross-border e-commerce, if you have companies that can do the data mining and go into there, you can get some pretty accurate numbers in sales growth. So that's a really good one. Underneath that, you'll see that's about $15+ billion. That's e-commerce for the health product industry. And it's about a 10 to 12% growth rate for the entire industry. And again, at the bottom, just talking about the transparency issues and overlap in those numbers. So it's just, the most important thing is to see that the market is growing, and it is big. It is second, in some cases first in the world, but I would say U.S. is first and China being the second largest. And for sales channels, the only thing China doesn't have is they don't have like specialty health food stores like we do here. And they don't have specialty like organic or health food oriented stores like Whole Foods or things like that. But they do have some high-end supermarkets. So if you're in the big cities like Beijing or Shanghai, you will find some high-end supermarkets that cater to higher-end percentage-wise of imported ingredients or products for the expat community, as well as the higher-end Chinese citizens that have expendable income. There's health and beauty, so Watsons and Mannings are the kind of 2 main ones you'll see in China. Lots of pharmacies, thousands of them. Most of them are very regional, so if you end up working with a pharmacy in Beijing, they will cover Beijing, and that's pretty much it. But that could be, 1,000 pharmacies. So it's still, pharmacies are very regional. They're not like here, we have like CVS and Walgreens that are nationwide. China does not have that at this point. Direct sales. And then cross-border e-commerce is the big one with social media selling, as well as live streaming is very popular now in China. So these are just some tidbits about, if you're a new company approaching the market, these are some kind of no-brainer things you got to think about. And the number one is the or IP, I should say, protecting your intellectual property. So that's domain names. So when you go to China, if you have a domain name here in the U.S., you want to make sure you register the ones in China, which would be .com, .cn, or .cn, and get those under your belt. Also your logos, trademarks, all that stuff, you want to take care of that before you enter the market or start looking for partners. Because there are many cases still of people registering your trademarks without your knowledge and squatting on them and trying to sell them to you. Activate your brand. So that's a big one, but that's to make sure that Chinese consumers have access to your brand, so they can search on foreign websites, they can see you, they can see your brand. This goes in with the next one. Is a lot of people don't think about it, but especially America, we have lots of Chinese media here. So there's Chinese media stations, news stations. Los Angeles, San Francisco, a lot of areas where there's higher concentrations of Chinese Americans have newspapers. So you can work with them and actually market to the Chinese living in America that also talk to, and that bleeds back over to their aunts, uncles, parents, grandparents that are living in mainland China. So that really helps get the brand circulating in the China market. Control your destiny. So this is there's lots of ways to approach the China market. One of those is you go in there and open a wholly foreign-owned company. Another one is finding just a partner, a distributor. And no matter what budget you have to enter the market, make sure that you control that. There's some of our members have partners on the ground in China. They don't have their own presence, so they rely on their partner. And in some cases, a year down the road or 2 years down the road, they've really lost track of their brand. They don't know exactly what the partner is doing with it or how the partner is marketing it. And that's crucial to make sure that you're involved in all that and understand how those companies, your partners, are selling your product and talking about your product. There's a lot of new laws coming out all the time in China for advertising. And if they misstep or cross the line, you could find yourself kind of blacklisted. And you definitely don't want that to happen. So you definitely got to stay involved with your partners, controlling your destiny and supporting them as well. And then on the other side, some partners complain to us. They're like, oh, we distribute this brand, but they don't really they don't show up at the trade shows. They don't provide us too much video content or marketing materials. And so it's always good to make sure you go to the shows. Right now, obviously, we can't go to those shows, but when they're open again, go to those shows, support them, and be part of your business in China. And then the last one would be the race to the bottom. That happens a lot because there are people selling your product in China through the Daigou system, or basically Chinese students or Chinese organizations that are living overseas, maybe in Australia or Europe or America, and they're buying your products or getting your products at wholesale without your knowledge, and then they're selling them in China for very low markup on Taobao.com or something like this. So maybe they're only making $1 or $2 profit on selling your product, but they don't care because they're like a college student. And so that really will mess up your map pricing. And that's very important to keep control of that because the competition will just keep pushing that price down as far as they can, and before you know it, you've sold yourself out of the market. So we'll get into the regulation portion. Okay, so previously this was all controlled by the Chinese FDA. That no longer it's not the CFDA, it's now the CDA, and they're not involved in the health product industry anymore. They're in charge of other things. So now this new group that was started in 2018, SAMR, they are in charge of many aspects in many different industries, including food and health food products, dietary supplements. So they are the government body that controls approvals and all the things. If you're going to do like traditional commerce and exports to China, they would be the one you'd have to deal with. This is the latest thing. You probably have seen this in the news. This is from the General Administration Chinese Customs Decree 248, and this requires all food manufacturers that are exporting to China to register with the GAC And this is started in January of this year. It's active. So anyone that's producing has to register, and this is not, it doesn't cost any money, but it's not completely transparent or clear. A lot of foreign companies have issues like how do they do it, what documents do they need, and so we can help with that, but this is a stumbling block. And if you're a brand that has a contract manufacturer, for example, you're a U.S. brand, but your brand is actually manufactured, let's say, in India or Canada or somewhere else, that is the manufacturer that have to register. The company that's actually making the product, the finished product, is the one that has to register. So that's another stumbling block, is that companies now have to go back and bother their contract manufacturers to register a product in China that they don't really have any interest in or know how to do that. But again, we can, if anyone is in that situation, we can definitely help you out with that. All right, so there's two ways to get dietary supplements approved. Registration or recording filing. The translation is kind of the same, but the first one is the one, we'll go into the cost and all that later, but that's the extensive one. That takes a long time, costs a lot of money, and it has 24 claims. So you'd take your product and you would match it up to one of those claims, and you're paying to get that product to have that claim. Recording and filing is just for the letter vitamins, basically. Individual, A, B, C, D, things like this, calcium. Those are not as expensive. They're a little faster. You can get them done. We'll go over that soon. And then there's 5 new ingredients that are added to that list, but unfortunately those 5 ingredients are only allowed for domestic production. Imports, they will not. You would still have to go through registration, unfortunately. So these are what, traditional imports, brick and mortar sales, or domestic.com sales all need registration. You have to go through that process if you want to sell in those type of channels. Filing, or registration and filing is not needed if you're doing cross-border. So there's no need to register the products with China and go through that process if you're just doing cross-border, or Chinese citizens are coming over to the U.S. and buying product and bringing it back home with them. They would just have to pay the tax. And that's kind of how the Chinese government sees this whole cross-border environment, is basically like a Chinese person goes to America, fills up a suitcase with some supplements, brings them back. Legally, the only thing they have to do is pay the tax. And that's what cross-border has forced everyone to do. It's a personal shipment, but the government gets their tax, and it's taxed when it enters the country, and it clears customs. Another stipulation people overlook is that these products that are going to China, they have to be at least a 1 year in country of origin market. So if you have a brand new product that you just launched today, you would have to technically, on paper, wait 1 year before you could approach the China market with that finished product to get it registered or approved for sales. So that's kind of an important thing. Companies sometimes look at their products and realize the potency is a little too high, so they have to reformulate the product to match the China regulations, and that basically stipulates that's a new product that's not for sale in the U.S. market at this point. So you'd have to wait. So this is what the registration looks like. This is an older one from the Chinese Food and Drug Administration, but that top Chinese logo basically just says health food. The second line is the actual number, and this number has a G, a large capital size G. That shows it's a domestic product. Imported products would have a J, and then the number next to it would be the year. So this one was like a 2004. And on the bottom there would say nowadays it says the state administration and not Chinese FDA. But that gets printed right on the bottle or on the package. So this year, SAMR has issued approvals for 2,349 different products. 110 were actually new, but the majority of them, the 2,000 plus, these were all transfers, or if the company moved or had an address change, or it's a renewal. So these registrations, both filing and full registration, are only good for 5 years. So they do need to be reapproved and re-registered after 5 years. So originally there was 27 claims that you could fit your product into. These ones highlighted in red are the ones that were canceled. So facilitating milk secretion, improving child growth, improving skin oil content, those 3 have been canceled. So there's only 24 claims at this point. And these claims, each one of them has various tests. There's sometimes human tests required, animal tests, and that will later, we'll show a slide that shows how long it takes to get these things finalized. So in general, a full registration product is going to take a minimum of about 3 years. On the bottom, it does say 2 years to 3 years, but there have been companies that have gone even 4 and 5 years before they got their registration. And that's mostly due to the foreign company not having the right documentation from their country to satisfy what China wants from them. And it takes extra time to find out how they get that document, who should produce it. In the case of America, we have the U.S. FDA that does not provide a lot of these documents because they do not register. Our products are not registered with the U.S. FDA, so there's no registration from country of origin. So that, if you don't get everything done up front and understand what documents you need, that can take a lot of extra months and add time to this. And then for costs, kind of average is about $150,000. It could be a little less, could be more, and again, that depends on if you go for more than one claim. Also, it depends if you need the animal and human trials done. This will really go up. And these are all done by, so to get the product registered, you can certainly try to do it on your own with your own team, but it's not advisable. Even Chinese companies will hire agents to do it for them, and these agents, that's all they do is they register products, and they know how to do it, and they know how to go step by step. So there's a big chunk of that you can see on the right towards the bottom there. $40,000 to $50,000 is the fee to the agent, and every agent is charges different fees, but you're looking at about $150,000 per SKU if you want full registration with claims. Now these are the 5 new ingredients I'd mentioned earlier that are available for domestic companies only to use in the filing system. Unfortunately, international companies cannot use these ingredients under the filing process, which we'll go over in a second, which is a lot faster and a lot cheaper. If you have a joint venture in China, you could have your joint venture company register these under the filing system. But as a foreign company going directly into China, you would have to go through, like for example, if you wanted to sell melatonin, you'd have to go through a registration process, the full registration for that. And these are some of the popular things. Well, first let me go over the filings. So there's been, you can see domestic, of course, has a lot more filings than international companies. Only was 23 this year. It was not too many. And the most popular ones are vitamin E, C, calcium, zinc, vitamin D, multivitamins. So these are the popular individual products. So like a bottle of calcium, a bottle of vitamin C, that's the only ingredient inside. These are kind of very popular in the market right now. Okay, and so here's the dosage forms. So tablet is by far the most popular, but on the end there, circled in red, those are 2 new approved dosage forms for the filing system, which is powder, so powdered sachets, or gelatin candy, like gummies and things like that. Those are new approved for the filing system. And for filing compared to 3 to 5 years, you're looking more at like 6 to maybe 10 months. So it's a lot shorter in terms of getting the approval. And again, it depends on the testing. It depends on what you're trying to claim. These all come with a kind of like a nutritional support claim. That is the claim. There's no independent, very direct claims on these products. It's all just nutritional support. That would be what they would be claiming. Okay, and cost, again, you're looking at a lot less money. So about $19,000, give or take, would be a filed product. So you can, one way to enter the market if you want to go down the filing route and get yourself into the domestic market would do some of these filings, maybe get a calcium or vitamin C or a vitamin D on the market. You can do it kind of fast, not too much money. And then for your more complex products that have the botanical extracts or things that wouldn't go through filing, you could go ahead and do those through Crossborder. And if they sell well, the next step would be looking at maybe getting the blue hat registration, or that registration that costs a lot more money for those. So you can, over a period of years, you can kind of start to enter the market, low-hanging fruit to the more difficult, more expensive. Now this is for our ingredient friends. There's a whole lot of this. We don't have time to go through everything, but the basics here is about anywhere from $30,000 to $100,000 for an ingredient. It can take 2 to 3 years. Again, every ingredient I've seen approved that had trouble or went longer than 3 years or went all the way up to 3 years it was all the country of origin brand having trouble getting the right documentation or getting things in order, what the Chinese government wants and needs from them. It just adds more time. They will technically accept a lot of maybe toxicology testing that's done outside of China, but in our experience, we've seen that companies end up redoing a lot of those tests in China anyways, just to make sure it goes through more quickly. One of our members, they chose to do everything themselves, and it added another 6 or 8 months to the process, just because they said, okay, this isn't working. They had to go back and just redo all the testing in China. So it just added another 6 months to the length of their registration. Now, not all ingredients are going to be approved, and as you'll see, China does not approve that many ingredients every year. Some years they don't approve any, and other years they approve 3 or 4, something like that. So it's not a lot, and especially botanicals, because a lot of botanical extracts will end up being inside the Chinese, traditional Chinese medicine pharmacopoeia, which makes them a medicine in a lot of cases, so you would not be able to utilize those. And they do have a special reference for botanicals, which is very lengthy. I couldn't go through it all here, but some are only allowed to be used in, some are allowed to be used in food, some are allowed to be used in food and health food products, and other ones are forbidden other than medicine, because they found that there's a toxicity to those potential botanicals. So you can only get them in a Chinese medicine that would be you'd get at a hospital, or a doctor would prescribe it to you. So they have pretty clear lists of all these botanicals. We do have members that have ingredients that are sold around the world, but China is not one of them because they just cannot get it approved. So what we do with those members is we encourage them to work with their clients in America or Canada that they're supplying the ingredient to, and that company makes a finished product, encouraging that finished product to enter the China market. So in that way, they're getting indirect profit by one of their clients actually getting their product into the cross-border channel and selling the product directly to Chinese consumers. And in some cases, there are a few big ingredient companies that decided just to make their own product, because China, they knew they have a big team in China, they know how everything operates, and they just said, well, for this market, let's just make our own finished product and sell it under our own a brand name or something like this. And that's not typical. I mean, ingredient companies usually don't make their own products, but China's a unique case where we do see some companies doing that. So this is, I won't go through these. There's a few probiotics here listed, but these are this year's, or last year's approved. So there was only 8 ingredients approved last year. And then there was another 6 that were in the process of public comment. So once there's a committee that will meet first initially to look at the product and kind of say, we agree this could be a health food or a new resource food, and then there's public comments, and there's all these other things that come in before it actually gets approved. So these were not approved, but still in that process. The third one there, though, PQQ, that one I believe was just recently released and approved, if I'm not mistaken. So that one was just very recent. Okay, then I'll just go through quickly. For those of you that don't know us, I'll just go through here quick what we do. So we help companies with a variety of things, all these things: marketing, branding, matchmaking. We have conferences, seminars. We do lots of work in China for our members. We mostly represent nutritional ingredient companies and finished dietary supplement companies. And we have another category that's service-oriented, so like companies like NSF International and a few other companies that offer, like Informa, that offers services to the industry, will belong to our group. So here's just some of the things that we do. Fortunately, our China events have not been canceled. China has not shut down throughout COVID. So our members that are in China have offices there. We're able to go to our seminars and our conferences and our meetings that we held in China. Just myself and other members that are not in China were not able to go just because of the two-week plus quarantine issue. And on the bottom you'll see probiotics and omega-3. So we have a Probiotic Summit every year, and omega-3 one was canceled because of COVID, but that one is scheduled. We're going to be probably doing that maybe later at the end of this year or early next year. It just depends on China's quarantine program. And that's a really good business-driven. The audience is filled with Chinese food scientists, R&D specialists, contract manufacturers, dairy, food, and the speakers are speaking directly to their potential partners in China. So it's a really good event. And then we help with marketing. So I'm sure you know some of these companies, and I think some of these companies may be in the audience, but we do a lot of work where we do executive interviews and work with our members to get their products out into the market. And most of these companies have presence in China already, but they are constantly coming up with new strains. This is all probiotics, by the way, but we do a lot of this work as well. Oops, sorry, my bad. So these are just some of the articles. These go through our channels on WeChat and a few other food channels. It's about 20 to 30,000 people, and all these people, about 30,000, are all food industry, R&D, dairy, infant formula, dietary supplements, OEM contract manufacturers. Get to see all this. And then this is our live streaming. So this past year we held 2 live streaming events. These 2 happen to be probiotics from the Probiotic Summit. And we did these live streaming, which were really successful. We had each one had about 1,000 people watching them and watching because they were recorded and reproduced, so they watched those as well. So we have a pretty strong marketing arm too to help companies get more notoriety amongst the Chinese industry. And then globally, this is a result of COVID. I was, sitting at home like a lot of people, and I have a lot of friends around the world, not just China. I've been in this industry almost 30 years, and I said, I haven't seen my friends in person. I haven't been to Expo, and I just started a YouTube channel, and we've got about 42 videos, just interviewing a lot of my friends from around the world. If you're interested, you can go check that out. Of course, it's free, and lots of different topics, not just China. And finally, these are some of our current and previous members and clients. So I'm sure you recognize a lot of these people. So we worked with a lot of real great companies working in China. And that's it for me. Thank you very much. Again, if you have any questions for me or any of the recorded presentations, please wait till the end and or just send me an email, and I'll be happy to get you that information. So now we're moving on to 3 of the recorded videos. Unfortunately, like I said, these speakers could not be here because of the China quarantine. But next one we have is Miss Joe Jing. She's one of our partners. She's the business director at TMO Group, and TMO is involved in e-commerce, helping companies set up their platforms, helping them run their business on Tmall, Taobao, and a variety of other things. And Miss Joe is going to talk about trends mostly for e-commerce.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy here for the Expo West. I'm Jin Zhou from TMO Group in China. So it's pity that I couldn't join physically, but I hope in the future I can have a chance to meet you all in person. So today my topic is trends in China's cross-border e-commerce for health supplements. So I first would like to introduce the terms of health supplement. In China, that goes to 2 ways. Health product, which is require blue hat registration from CFDA, and the dietary supplement are generally considered as a food. Yes, China is a fast-growing health supplement market. According to iMedia research, in 2020, the market size has reached approximately 250 billion yuan, a year-on-year increase of 12.4%. It is expected to reach 270 billion yuan in 2021. But you can see the interesting thing is Compared to those developed countries, the per capita consumption in China is still very low. It's only around 20%. So that shows a great opportunity for future growth. Over the past 2 decades, China has increased health insurance coverage to over 95% of population. As many other countries in the world, we are facing an aging demographic, along with increased incidence of NCDs such as cancer and cardiovascular diseases. Is beginning to impact the healthcare cost. The World Bank joint report with China government found that healthcare spending will increase to 2.5 trillion USD in 2035, up from 500 billion USD in 2014, if without any reform. Additionally, the imbalance between rural and urban healthcare coverage also calls for government's action. So you can see since from 2016, government released multiple policies to support healthcare industry. From overall commitment to improve the different level of medical and health services, introducing internet to the strategy, especially utilize the means of cross-border e-commerce. The last one, promoting sport culture to enhance people's physical fitness and general health level. You may notice that the Winter Olympic in Beijing last month has sparked a mass fitness craze. So there are several factors drive overall health supplement consumption. As a result of economic growth and rising personal incomes, Chinese people are demanding better healthcare. So in the past, health supplements are considered as a high-end product and gift. Nowadays, people's perception and willingness to buy health supplement has slowly changed. The next one is the aging population. Currently, China has about 176 million people aged 65 and above at the end of 2019, which is counted for nearly 12.6% of its total population. Among them, around 75% of China's elderly people suffer from chronic diseases. The pandemic has definitely cultivated healthcare need. The products that enhance immunity are most interested. So that led to a 47% of sales increase in 2020 compared to the year before in Tmall Global. The last one, the rapid environmental changes accompanied with urbanization in China lead to a increasing sub-health issue. The below chart shows 25 to 40-year-old group counted for around 60% of sub-health group. They are looking for health solution, and in general, these people have strong spending power. Let's look into consumer group. First of all, the elderly are main forces in the consumption of a health supplement product. While China is gradually becoming an aging society, the size of pension industry keeps growing fast. Yeah, we need to say currently the elderly people are the richest people actually in China. So they have property, they also have a pension. So among that, health supplement market for elderly contributes for more than 50% of the total market share. So you can see the below chart, nearly 90% of average monthly consumption from this group are below 500 RMB. When elderly people purchase, they pay more attention to the efficacy. Besides, what's interesting is only 20% of purchases are made by themselves. more than 50% are given by others. 30% are purchased by their children and spouse. Therefore, when you promoting the product to the elderly, it is necessary not only focusing on themselves, but also reaching to young consumers. The growing demand from young and mid-aged people for health supplement is continued to expand. Young and middle-aged working class often suffer from physical and psychological health problems due to work stress, physical inactivity, unhealthy diet, and smoking, etc. They are aware of problems, but compared to regular diet, getting more sleep, keeping exercising, it seems more convenient and feasible to consume health supplements. Therefore, health supplements are becoming a rigid need for this group of people. Nowadays, China implements two-child or maybe multiple-child policy. The market share of health supplement for pregnant women has exceeded to 65 billion yuan in 2020. The penetration of health supplement among pregnant women is very high. 90% of them will take certain amount of supplement during pregnancy for body recuperation and also nutritional supplementation. The generation mothers has different buying behavior. They pay more attention to the safety, taste, and convenience, accepting recommendation not only from doctors, but also KOL, key opinion leader from social media. They pursue the high end and high quality, of course, and they're willing to pay for that. The distribution channels for health supplement in China is relatively concentrated. You can see the trend shifting channels from direct sales to e-commerce. In 2020, the distribution for direct sales is counted for only 25%, which in 5 years ago is more than 50%. Pharmacy around 33%. E-commerce market right now increased to 40%, and offline retail points 12%. We also observe that channels will be further diversified and integrated. Due to the time limitation, I'm not going to expand this topic furthermore, but you may follow our industry report for more information. So the overall market size for China online health supplement markets, you can see, especially for cross-border, these are top 5 cross-border e-commerce marketplaces: Tmall Global, Kaola, JD Worldwide, VIP International, and the Little Red. So you may see 82.9% of shoppers are between aged from 19 to 40. And in the recent years, the live streaming is becoming more important sales mechanism, especially for new products and new brand launch. So now let's dive into cross-border e-commerce for health supplement markets in Alibaba family. So from 2019 to 2021, the overall market shows a trend of steady growth year by year. In particular, Double 11 sales revenue increased each year, and that takes more than 20% of the annual market revenue. It reached around 3.7 billion yuan in 2021. Regarding brands, consumers are quite cautious when it comes to health supplement, and many of them will buy products from big brands which have a good reputation. Compared to the last 2 years Double 11 data, you can see the top 5 best-selling brands are exactly the same. 2 Australian brands, 2 US brands, and 1 from Japan. The sales revenue of each of these 5 brands increased, which a very positive sign, shows that the overall market have a large potential, while other 5 brands are fluctuated. The product categorization methodology changed a lot from 2020 and 2021. It has shifted from nutrient-oriented to a more benefit-oriented, which is in line with consumer search behavior. And that's why the best-selling categories are quite different before and after. So we can see that previously, coenzyme Q10 products are under subcategory of mushroom, and now they are belong to heart health supplement, which make more sense to the consumer. Now let's look at how products are being marketed differently in China and in US. We took the popular product fish oil from the brand Swiss as example. We browsed the brand official store in Tmall and Amazon US respectively and found some noticeable differences. To target Chinese consumer on Tmall, the brand will include main target consumer group in the product title. In this case, it's for mid-aged and elderly, and make a celebrity endorsement appearance on the product title and detail page. To target the American consumer on Amazon, on the other hand, we saw the mean nutrient and the amount in the product title, emphasize some information such as the diet type and allergen information on the product page. So you may see the knowledge for health supplements in different countries, in 2 countries, are quite different. The last session, we're going to dive into Chinese consumers, especially young generation. So we've concluded 6 consumer insights and trends for you. Young consumers are starting to buy more than 4 types of health supplement with their targeted functions instead of single products with generic functions. The consumption of health supplement has gradually been shifting from only holding products during big promotion period to more of a routine pattern. And sports nutrition has increased a lot since more people started to work out actively. Due to the unhealthy lifestyle, Chinese young people intend to take health supplement as a lifesaver. From here, you can see the products like a Swiss liver detox sells very well. And in the middle, the snack form supplement with good taste are getting popular, such as gummy and jelly. Lastly, the generation taking beauty supplement are getting younger and younger. You may find many 20-ish young girls sharing and posting the beauty supplement they consume on the Little Red Book. So we've set up 5 typical persona for your reference. The first one is beauty and health enthusiast. Let me just take this one. Yeah. So these people, they are young ladies who are beauty lovers and willing to invest on their internal and external health. The most common health supplement they will buy are those help improve skin conditions, such as collagen and grapeseed. Other products they usually buy including vitamin and women probiotics. These people usually have addiction to social media and has a lot of KOLs on their list. It is common for them to place order on live streaming platform or turn to Taobao and Tmall with seeded product. As I've mentioned before, snap-formed products are very popular now, and they are especially favored by these young girls. The second persona is fitness fanatics. The number of people working out actively in China is growing each year, and sport-related health supplements are in a great demand. The product choice can be a bit different for men and women. Men intend to purchase protein powder for muscle building, and the women focusing more to a weight management and are most likely to choose products that accelerating fat burning and metabolism. There are some products that would like to buy in common, for example, glutamine for joint health. Compared to health supplement enthusiasts, they rely more on the recommendation by fitness trainer and other sport lovers. But these two personas tend to share similar purchase channels, including e-commerce marketplaces, live streaming platform, and shopping apps. The third persona is office workers. As I mentioned before, in China, it's so common that young people work overtime and stay up late. So a lot of white paper are in sub-health. They definitely need nutrition support from the food supplement. Since they usually suffer from different health problems, it's normal that they buy variety kind of products, including milk thistle for liver health, melatonin for better sleep, multivitamins to boost immunity, etc. Regarding purchasing channels, likewise, they are also used buying online. But they relatively has less time watching live streaming and discovering apps they like all the time. So it's more convenient for them to shop on e-commerce marketplaces like Tmall. The next persona is young family. Yeah, they are actually the group of people who are under even more pressure than office worker. They are playing different roles inside and outside of home. They needed to balance work and life and have responsibilities to taking care of their both parents and kids. The health supplements they buy are usually for all of the family members. For example, fish oil can be the products they buy quite often. Since it contains EPA that targets for elderly people, as well as DHA that's good for the kids' brain health. Since this group of people are still quite young and tech-savvy, they will still prefer online channels. But the difference between them are cautious or pay more attention to the product reliability and safety when they buy health supplement. So the last one persona is mid-aged and elderly people. Although they are main consumer group of the health products, but not necessarily the largest buyer group, as their attitude towards food supplements are as not open as the same group in Western countries. It's more likely that kids choosing products for them. In terms of the products, fish oils, glucosamine products, calcium tablets, and multivitamins are the most common categories they will consume. And they will prefer capsule and tablet. They are easy to swallow. their purchase channels are quite different from those other personas. They are still used to direct sales or pharmacy on the recommendation of doctors and health experts. The good news is more and more of them are becoming netizen and started to buy online, but they're usually quite skeptical and only buy products from big brands, flagship store. So lastly, please allow me to introduce TMO Group. So we are a digital commerce agency providing e-commerce consultancy, design, develop, and manage service since 2011. We have a slogan of commerce, data, and AI. Through the commerce data to discover the true intelligence. TMO has strong focusing on health and beauty industry, either for B2C or D2C, direct to consumer, and industry-wide focusing on business to business. I'm the managing partner in charge of the e-commerce consultancy and other accounts. These are some of our clients. In 2015, we started our first cross-border e-commerce project in Hangzhou with a bundled CBEC model, cross-border e-commerce model. Since then, we help our clients from, you can see Denmark, Holland, New Zealand, Australia, U.S., Spain, France, and Germany, who are mainly in food and health industry to enter China market via cross-border e-commerce. The entry strategy we took are from the market to industry and then to brand, covering country-specific legal, logistic, payment, and social medias, to industry-specific, such as a market potential, in this case, a health supplement industry, and competitive environment and demographics, and then to develop a brand-specific e-commerce strategy, choosing the right e-commerce channel, setting up the budget, and market entry approach. For the last 3 years, our market intelligence team are working on country localization guides for China and Southeast Asia markets, as well as industry report related to food and health. So this is my contact information. If you have more questions, please contact me or go through from Jeff. So thank you very much.
All right, they're switched in the audio video over here, Deck. So we'll just go with my friend Brian here. So Brian's from Early Data. He does deep dive on e-commerce. And so if you're a company that wants to find out how your brand is doing in China compared to your competitors, or you want to find out how it's selling or how competitors are doing, his company, Early Data, does AI, and they deep dive and get all that information out. So let's welcome Brian here to talk to you about this.
Well, hi, Jeff. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation and for having me here. And for all the participants out there in Expo West, hi, my name is, as Jeff mentioned, my name is Brian Negley. I'm with Early Data, and I'm very happy to be here. And I hope you'll find what I have to say of interest and relevance to you and your business in China. So I wanted to use our data, our e-commerce data on the health supplements category, and review the year 2021 and talk about some of the general trends and some of the findings that we saw in the past year. So I'm going to go ahead and kick off now. First, just to set the stage in terms of what we do in terms of the health supplements category, give some definitions so we all can kind of level set on what we're looking at. So we define health supplements as a combination of nutritional health products and mother-child nutritional health. So of those two, nutritional health is probably 95% of those two combined. We cover all of the Alibaba platforms, Taobao, Tmall, Hong Kong. Also, Kala, as I'm sure you're aware, is also an Alibaba platform. Jingdong Worldwide, VIP, Pinduoduo, Suning, and Amazon. We estimate that those platforms combined are roughly about 80% of Chinese e-commerce sales. So we don't cover all of the platforms in Chinese e-commerce, but we cover the major ones. So again, we estimate that we cover about 85% of Chinese e-commerce sales. We report once a month, so every calendar month we'll come up with an updated figure for the categories that we have. So I'll be showing you some annual figures, and then along with that, some monthly figures. And just to bit more detail on how we estimate sales, because we're often asked this, we use the 30-day rolling sales figures from the Alibaba sites, and then we use statistical estimates to estimate sales on the non-Alibaba sites. Okay. Okay, so let's dig in. So I'll be talking a lot about 2021 and growth rates versus the previous year, or 2020. So this first slide is looking at the total category health supplements as I defined it on that first slide, in terms of overall sales and sales growth. So on the left, the bars in blue show the category sales in billions of renminbi. So in the recent year, we measured 75.4 billion sales in health supplements, which represented a 21.3% growth over 2020. That is approximately 11.4 billion in US, just to do the math. The red bars on the right represent volume or unit sales. So we also measure units. So we measured a similar growth rate, about 21.1%, 2021 over 2020. A little bit over 500 million unit sales. So pretty healthy growth. When we walk through the year and we try to get an idea of how that annual figures breaks out in terms of month by month sales, this is value sales by month, and the number's a little bit small, but this is in billions of renminbi per month. So January, for example, was 4.2 billion. Then 3.8, 5.7 in March. So this is how the year 2021 looked. So as we all know, there's big promotional months in China. 11/11 is the big promotion. So as you can see, in the month of November, sales were about twice as average. They came a little bit under 12 billion renminbi in terms of sales. We're about twice the average of monthly sales. And then June, the Liao Yao Ba 618 promotion is the second biggest month, and that comes in at about 1.5 average sales. So this is how the month looks. And then another thing that we did is we took both 2020 and 2021, and we created seasonality indexes. So what this slide is showing is in each calendar month of 2020 and 2021, we just combined these 2 years. We want to understand what percent of sales happened in each month, okay? So it's no surprise, as we just saw on the last slide, June and November are the biggest months. In November, a little over 15% of the sales happened, 15.6, and in June, 11.6% of the annual sales happened, which means in those promotional months of November and June, you'll get about 27% of the overall annual sales. So those 2 months are very key. They account for over a quarter of sales. Another interesting phenomena is in the last 5 months of the year, about half of the sales happen. So as you can see, once you kind of hit August and September and October, sales increase as a prelude up to 11/11, and then even in December they stay strong, probably in part because of the 12/12 promotion. On the other hand, January and February are relatively low. That's probably because it's Chinese New Year, things slow down, and they're also post 11/11 and 12/12 promotions. So those January and February months only account for about a little bit over 5% of sales each. Okay, so that's how seasonality looks in the category. Okay, now we get into specific platforms and things like that. What we're showing here is the category share or the category importance by platform. Okay, so how much business does each platform do? So Tmall domestic is the biggest platform. I know the number is a little bit small, but that Tmall does about 27% of value sales. Tmall Hong Kong is the second at a little bit over 18%, followed by Jingdong at a little bit over 18%. JD Worldwide is the number 3 player, etc. So this just gives you an idea of the breakdown of sales by platform. So long story short, Tmall and JD combined dominate. They're well over 75%, especially if you throw Kala into Alibaba, you're getting 75, 80% of sales held by value sales. If we look at the same chart on a volume basis, it's fairly similar, but there's one big difference, and that is the number 2 player is Pinduoduo. Okay, so Tmall again is number 1. Now, Tmall is also big on a volume basis than value basis because they sell relatively on lower priced items. But again, the big difference is Pinduoduo. Okay, again, if you go back really quickly, Pinduoduo only accounted for about a little over 4% of value sales, but on a volume basis, they're over 17%. So they're really important on a volume basis. And the reason they're so high on volume and low on value is they sell a lot of lower priced items. We'll get into more detail on that in a later slide. But as you can see, on a volume basis, Pinduoduo is really important. Followed again by the same players we saw last time, JD, Tmall Hong Kong, Taobao, and JD Worldwide. Okay. Now we're going to look at growth. So as I mentioned, we're going to look at a lot of 2021 versus 2020 comparisons. So as I mentioned in one of the slides before, the whole category grew on a value basis 21.3% for the year. But if you look at by platform, you'll see vast differences in terms of how each platform performed. Pinduoduo on a value basis outgrew everybody else. So again, on a value basis, it's relatively small, but it grew 50%, 51.1 to be precise. VIP was number 2 in terms of growth, 34.4%. So interestingly, even though those are smaller platforms, they outgrew the bigger platforms. And then JD was also relatively big on a value basis, 28.6%, outgrowing the total category and outgrowing their big rival Tmall, which is only 22.2%. Okay, so that's sales on a value basis. On a volume basis, it's a similar story. Again, the overall growth rate is a little over 20% for volume. VIP and Pinduoduo again grow the fastest. JD's grows fast again. It's similar on a value basis. Interestingly, Tmall Hong Kong declined on a volume basis. They grew on a value basis, but they declined on a volume basis, meaning they're selling less volume of higher priced items as compared to last year. And you'll see a lot of international players, they lost volumes in 2021 on Tmall Hong Kong, and that's their big entry into the market. And then Taobao underperformed the market on a volume basis as well. Okay, now I'm going to look at manufacturers, particularly the top 10 manufacturers, to see how they did both on a value and a volume growth rate. Okay, so Biostime, which is primarily the Swiss brand, is the market leader. And as you can see, and I know the numbers are small, but on a value basis, they slightly overperformed the category at 23% growth, and on a volume basis, they underperformed at 17%, but they're more or less in line with the category. So share-wise, they probably more or less held their share. ByHealth underperformed. Okay, they're the number 2 player, but they only grew 7% on a value, 4.6% on a volume basis, so they underperformed by quite a bit on both measures. So who grew in the top 10? Interestingly, local players. Tongren Tang grew a lot, as you can see, 50% on a value basis, well over 100% on a volume basis. Renhe, which is the second from the bottom, they also grew a lot, both on a value and a volume basis, close to triple digits. And then All Nature Pharmacy also outgrew the category. But the big winners, Tongren Tang, Renhe. And the interesting thing is this is a category that's dominated by multinationals. Multinationals, particularly going through cross-border. But this year you see a big turnaround. You see more growth in the domestic platforms, Tmall and particularly JD, number 1. And then 2, you see local players outgrowing or outperforming the bigger multinational players. So it's a turnaround in 2021 on both fronts. Okay, we'll look at how the top 10 performed on the bigger platforms, which are the Tmall Hong Kong, JD, and JD Worldwide, the two platforms for the big giants. And again, you can kind of see what I just spoke about. You know, if you look at Tmall, Renhe, Tong and Tang did very well. Okay, if you go down to Jingdong, Tong and Tang, another big growth rate. Tmall Hong Kong, interestingly, even though Buy Health lost share, they actually gained on Tmall Hong Kong. So they did poorly on the domestic platforms, particularly on JD, but they actually grew on Tmall Hong Kong, and they also grew on JD Worldwide. So it was kind of a turnaround for Buy Health, but overall they lost share just because they really underperformed on the domestic platforms. Okay, so that's one way to slice it by manufacturer. Now I'm going to look at the whole category, but I'm going to look at which ingredients, which ingredients grew the most, or products with which kind of ingredients. Okay, and for anybody that's followed the category, it's probably no surprise, but probiotics has been growing for some time, and in 2021 that stayed true. So as you can see, items with probiotics grew on a value basis 50%, so that's more than double the category growth rate of a little bit over 20%. And that was true on both a value and a volume basis. So the clear winners were the items with probiotics, okay? Second to that would be multivitamin products, okay? They outgrew the category, 28% value, 38% volume. So again, the category growth was about 21. So multivitamins did well as well. Anything with protein in it in the top 10 seemed to decline. Protein powder, the leading segment, as you can see, declined on a value basis and just slightly grew on a volume basis, so well under the category. And then family protein powders, sports protein powders, they also underperformed the category. So again, probiotics, particularly in multivitamins, grew, and then the protein, anything protein related, declined. Which platforms grew for probiotics was the next thing that we looked at. So again, if we look at all platforms, they grew 50% for probiotics, more than double the category growth rate of 21%. And not surprisingly, it was the same platforms that grew on an overall basis that grew for probiotics, particularly Pinduoduo, VIP, although here VIP does extremely well, 172% increase in probiotic products. Pinduoduo almost a doubling, not bad at all, at 98%. And then the Jingdong platforms did quite well, as you can see. JD grew a lot in probiotics at 184%, and JD Worldwide at 77%. Tmall and Tmall Hong Kong, even though they grew, they underperformed the category here. So they actually lost ground in terms of sales of probiotics. Okay. So again, looking at manufacturers that grow in the probiotics section. So we're still looking at probiotics, and we're looking at which manufacturers grew the most. So a lot of these growth rates are positive because overall probiotics grew by over 50%. But there were some big clear winners, and not surprisingly, that the winners on an overall basis were the winners here in probiotics as well. So Tong and Tang grew a ton here, 633%. So they had a really small base and they just grew a lot. Renhe grew a lot, 265%. So, you know, big multiples of 2021 over what they did in 2020. Wonder Lab grew a lot, 400%. Biostime, the market leader, this is one area they did well. To remind you, they grew more or less at the same rate as the category, but this is one area they outperformed, and it was in probiotics. They grew about 3 times the overall market growth rate. And then looking at Tong and Tang in particular to see how they grew. I know the yellow line is hard to see, but we wanted to take a look and see how they grew through the year. So on the far left is January 2021, followed by February 2021. So at that point, they were just doing a little bit over $1 million RMB sales in probiotics, 1.4 million, 1.7 million. And you can see from about May or June, it really picks up. It goes from a little bit like 2 million some odd in May. They get over 5 million in June, and all the way from June all the way up to the 11/11 promotion, their probiotic products just grew, and they peaked in November at 24 million. So this just shows you how they grew their probiotic sales. Really small base, didn't have much, but they just grew throughout the year. And they had a strong finish in December at over 17 million. So they grew 10x in probiotic sales through 2021. Renhe was starting from a much bigger base. So unlike Tong and Tang, who just had like 1 million or 2 million in sales as a base, Renhe was starting from a base of 10, 12, 14 million at the beginning of the year. So they had a pretty good probiotic profile coming into the year. But they too grew through the years. You can see this chart goes up. They almost hit 20 million in June with the 618 promotion. They dip a little bit, but the last 2 months of the year, they go over 20 million sales in probiotics. So they pretty much doubled their sales throughout the year. Much bigger base than Tong and Tang, but they had a very healthy increase as well throughout the year. Okay, now we're going to slice the category a different way. We looked at top manufacturers, top ingredients. Now we're going to look at which price bands are driving the category. What price bands do the most business, and then how do they grow? So we're going to look at products that are priced from 0 to 100, 100 to 200, 200 to 500, etc. The share is what percent share of the market do they have, both on a value and a volume basis, and what was the growth rate of those price bands versus the previous year. So I'll just walk you through an example to try to make this clear. So, for example, price bands, products priced from 0 to 100, on a value basis, they had about 18% of the market, and they grew about 19%. On a volume basis, they account for over half the market, which is not a surprise. Low price, but a lot of people like to buy them. So they accounted for 56% of the market, and they grew 29.3%, which is over the market growth rate. So low price products grew on a volume basis, and we'll get more clarity on where that happened in just a minute. Interestingly, the price bands that grew the most were the high price bands. Okay, they occupy a relatively low percentage of the market. So 500 to 1,000 grew over 70%, both on a value and a volume basis. They only account for about 3% of the volume. Not many people are buying products in those, but they account for about 13% of the volume. But both of those numbers were significantly bigger than the prior year. And even products priced 1,000 plus, very small percent of the market, less than 1%, but they still account for almost 10%, 8.7 to be specific, of value sales. And both those numbers, as you can see, are over 30%. So even though relatively small, highest-priced items grew. Now we're going to look at the same thing for probiotics to see if we see a similar pattern. And the short answer is yes. Probiotic products that were priced between 500 and 1,000 grew the fastest. Again, they're relatively small in terms of percent of the market. They only have 2% of the volume, as you can see, but they accounted for almost 11% of the value. But as you can see, they grew well over 100%, close to 150%, 147 on a volume, 146 on a value basis. Also, the lower priced items slightly outgrew the market. So to remind you, probiotics as a whole grew about 50%. And as you can see, probiotics priced between 0 and 100 grew slightly over 50%, both on a volume and a value basis. So low priced products doing reasonably well. So it's the stuff in the middle, 100 to 500, both on an overall basis and particularly for probiotics products that grew relatively slow. One final chart is I wanted to look at the average prices for the total market and then by platform, because we've talked about some of the differences in pricing, particularly Pinduoduo, but I wanted to look at how each platform prices and if there were any changes year on year. Okay, so this is the average price per platform of a product 2021 versus 2020. So if we look at the far left, we'll see the total market. And we see the average price was 139, both in 2021 and 2020. So really not much change. And that's your average, that's your benchmark for the whole market. Okay. So we talked before about Pinduoduo being relatively low priced, and indeed they are. They're less than 25% of the market price. So slight uptick in 2021 with an average price of 32. Last year was 31, but they are a fraction of the market, as you can see, well below 25%. So Pinduoduo is unique in terms of both the product range and relative pricing. Tmall as well is well below. There's a pretty big difference between Tmall and Jingdong, as you can see. Tmall price is below the market, coming at slightly above 100, and they had a slight decline in 2021. And JD is above the market. They also had a decline 2020 to 2021, but they're well above the market. The other thing to point out here is the pricing of cross-border. Not surprisingly, because the product mixes differently, it lends itself more toward international players who tend to have, higher priced products, higher profile. Higher priced products, let's just say. So pricing above market for Tmall, Hong Kong, Jingdong, worldwide, and Kaola, point number one. And then point number two, you can see there were increases all around. And that could be straight price increases, or it could be a change in product mix. So it's probably in the cases of all three platforms, a combination thereof. Okay, so I will summarize what I've just spoken about and draw some conclusions for you to take away. Okay, one is just overall growth. Overall growth was about 21%, both on a sales value and a sales volume basis. So relatively good, relatively strong, higher than GDP, and that's a good growth rate compared to a lot of the other FMCG categories that we measure in e-commerce. All right, it was the smaller platforms that drove growth. Pinduoduo and VIP, both relatively small, holding less than 10% share, outgrew the larger, more established ones. Also, in previous years, we'd seen a lot of push by cross-border platforms, particularly Tmall, Hong Kong, and Jingdong worldwide. This year, we have a reversal of that. Tmall actually outgrew Tmall Hong Kong. Jingdong actually outgrew JD worldwide. So this particular year, the domestic platforms outgrew their cross-border counterparts. Okay. In terms of seasonality, no surprise, November and June account for more sales than the rest of the market. Those 2 months account for about 27% of sales. Okay, so that gives you a sense of how the weighting goes. The other thing is the back half of the year, those last 5 months of the year, account for about half the sales, whereas the first 7 months of the year account for the other half of the sales. Particularly the Chinese New Year's months, January, February are the slowest months, each accounting for only about 5% of sales. In terms of manufacturers, the market leader's Biostime, they grew more or less at the market, slightly better on a value basis from memory and below on a volume basis. The number 2 player, By Health, they grew, but they lost share. They grew much less than the market benchmarks of 21%. Interestingly, multinationals have been the big growers in years past, but this year that was not true. Local players were much stronger, at least in the top 10, as evidenced by the growth that we saw in Tongren and Tang, and then her, both on an overall basis and then particularly in probiotics. Speaking of probiotics, in terms of ingredients, probiotic products far outgrew the market with growth rates over 50%, both on a value and a volume basis. Again, overall market was 21%. So probiotic products grew twice as fast as the overall market. In terms of which platforms drove that, pretty much what we saw for the overall market. VIP and Pinduoduo grew very fast with probiotics products. Jingdong also did very well with probiotics products, growing faster than the market. And manufacturers, Tongren and Tang, and her Wonderlab, Biostime, all outgrew that 50% benchmarking with their probiotics products. Okay, and the last thing we looked at was price points. Which price points grew the fastest? And interestingly, it was higher priced products that grew faster. Relatively small percent of the market, less than 3% of the market, but both for the overall market and then in our fastest growing segment of probiotics, those 500 to 1,000 renminbi products outgrew the market over 70%, more than 3 times the overall category growth rate. So hopefully that gives you some ideas of the size, the growth rate, the platform performance, the manufacturer performance, the segment performance, and then finally how different price points perform in the overall market. So hopefully that helped you understand the market. This is a big market, again, well over 10 billion US dollars. There's plenty of opportunity. It's growing. It's competitive, but for those that are in the market, there are certainly continued opportunities, as you can see here, with changing mix of products and platforms, not to mention price points. For those of you considering getting in, there are certainly opportunities, both with the established platforms, they're very healthy, and they are growing, as well as some of the smaller platforms who, at least in this year, actually outperformed and outgrew the larger platforms. Just a few words about early data. So we are a Shanghai-based digital data collection company. We have three main areas of business that we cover on. One is e-commerce, which is I just covered. We track sales and market share in a number of categories, well over 80 categories that we track. I just showed you a few in this presentation, but we track many, many more on a monthly basis, and we produce those numbers. We also do a lot of pricing work on e-commerce. Completely different area. We cover menus. We cover menu insights. We track those sales, and we report on what's happening on some of the menus. And we also cover a lot of pharmaceutical sites. That's kind of a specialized area, but we do a lot of work in the pharmaceutical area, reporting on trends in product patents, things like that in the pharmaceutical area. Okay. We are a key strategic partner of Mintel, which is, if you haven't heard of Mintel, they are a large multinational with UK headquarters, operate in a number of countries in the world. They do a lot of new product development. And we partner with them on a lot of things in terms of client pitches, product development, joint projects, things of that nature. So us combined with them, we feel is a powerful combination. Okay. The product that I just showed you is a product we call category modeling. So again, we track about 80 FMCG categories. We produce data monthly. There's an online tool. We also customize in terms of our delivery, in terms of PowerPoint, in terms of APIs. There's a lot of ways that we deliver data. So of course, we're happy to discuss this further with anyone that may have an interest. Here are my contact details. So first and foremost, thank you. I appreciate your attendance and listening to me. If you'd like to find out more, I'd be more than happy to speak with you. So this is my contact information. That's my email, brian@earlydata.com. And that's my phone number there. So if you're at all interested and would like to find out more, I'd be happy to share more data with you as well. Please contact me. So thank you very much. I appreciate your attendance and listening. And Jeff, thank you very much for inviting me.
All right, so this lovely lady here is our friend Shilin Song. She's the sales and marketing director of a group called Walk the Chat, and they specialize in social selling, which is a lot of social media and like live streaming, things like that. So she's going to give us a nice presentation.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks for inviting me to speak here today at Expo West. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all virtually. I'm Shilin from Walk the Chat. So today we'll share with you some updated insights about Chinese market, in particular, how to sell your products to China through social media. So let's get started. So the agenda of today is basically to answer a few questions. So first of all, among all the major social media platforms in China, which one should you choose considering your vertical, your price range, etc.? And then which sales channel should you choose? After deciding both questions, then how to promote your brand and products, how to boost sales. We'll look at KOL, influencers, live streaming, advertising, and engagement campaigns. And in the end, we'll answer some typical questions about cross-border shipping, logistics, and taxes. So let's get started. So these are the major social media platforms in the Chinese market. WeChat is without doubt still the biggest one with 1.2 billion monthly active users. Although the users are consuming less content on this platform due to the competition from short video platforms such as Douyin. However, it is still a very strong platform for loyalty management to stay engaged with your VIP customers. For Douyin, it is without doubt the most trendy platform these days. So with the core feature of short video and live streaming sales, it is the go-to platform when people want to consume content or get entertained. Red and Bilibili, in comparison, is still niche, but they are very strong in their niche market. So Red is the best platform for seeding, for product discovery and review. So this is the platform where people will go to search for comments and posts about your brand or your product before deciding to buy. So you really want to have a good image here on Red. Bilibili is the leading long video platform in China, similar to YouTube. It is particularly trendy among Gen Z, especially those who are fond of pop culture, anime, comic, and games. Weibo, in comparison, is kind of going down as a content platform. It is still important during some major social events or global news, like in recent days. But people are consuming less content here, and you will not expect a lot of engagement with your brand account if you are just posting contents there. It is still good for celebrity collaboration, though. So how does a Chinese consumer journey looks like? So a typical Chinese consumer will discover your brand through a post of celebrity or key opinion leaders, typically on Red or Douyin. And then if they're interested, they will search your brand to look for more information on Red. So this is where KOC, key opinion customers, plays an important role. Because then with more limited budget, you can boost your numbers of mentions on Red, which will create a good image when people search for a brand. They will be like, oh, this is a brand that people are buying, so we can trust it. So in this phase, this is more of a branding or long-term effect on your brand. But if you want a short-term sales, we'll suggest paid KOL campaign, because this kind of bigger KOLs, they have their loyal customer or loyal fan base, so they are more likely to purchase directly when they recommend a product. Then for the phase of loyalty, is for sure WeChat is the best platform for it. Then if customers are really happy with the purchase, they will organically publish reviews, typically again on Red, and this will in return enrich the content when more customers search for your brand. So we really encourage a positive flow here. So Red is the best for discovery and research. This is where your marketing funnels will start, either through KOL post, advertising, or random customer repost if the post gets viral. However, people will not typically buy directly on this platform. So when people want to buy things, the first option is still to go on Tianmao or Taobao to search if you have an official channel, official store there. And if not, they will probably go to WeChat and see if you have a WeChat mini program. And Red is probably the last option they will consider, because it is relatively new, so people are not used to purchase there yet. WeChat is the best for loyalty. You can easily get a higher repurchase rate and even upsell or cross-sell. So for example, these Korean fashion brands that we manage, we help them to create 2 loyalty groups with only 1% of the brand followers. They contributed 5% of the total online sales. So they are more valuable than the random or normal customers. You really want to keep them happy, keep them close and engaged in a private or closed ecosystem like WeChat. Of course, you can also reach out to new customers on WeChat. For example, with KOL campaign, you can also have a relatively good ROI, typically around 200 or 300%. However, if you want to do ads, especially prospecting ads on WeChat, it's harder to get a positive ROI. And Douyin, the most trendy platform, has also built a closed in-app ecosystem from conversion consideration, from awareness consideration to conversion. So the customer journey on Douyin could be a bit of a mix. So they could either discover your brand through a short video, through ads, or even in a live streaming of a KOL. If the product is cheap, like less than 15 USD, most customers will even buy directly in the live streaming. If it's relatively more expensive, then people will, of course, take more time to consider, compare the price, and then make their final decision. One differentiating factor of Douyin is live streaming sales, because in 2020, they already achieved more GMV than Taobao live streaming. And we have no doubt that this is still going to grow. So Douyin is the most trendy and the most fast-growing platform among these all. So in terms of online sales channels, again, we're comparing the social commerce platform such as WeChat, Douyin, and Red. All of them supports cross-border sales. But WeChat is the only one that you can own the data, because you basically create your own mini program within the WeChat ecosystem. So with this customer data, you can easily do retargeting campaigns later. It is also easy to set a store there, because any brand can just build a WeChat mini program store. And Douyin and Red, in comparison, the platform will own the data because it's more like a marketplace system. In terms of easiness to list, Douyin team is a bit more selective, and also you have to pay a bit more deposit to the platform to guarantee that it's going to work. Then Red is somehow in between, with less deposit to the platform. In terms of capacity to attract new customers, Douyin and Red is the best one, because this is where consumers are happily consuming content, and they're more in an exploration mode, so they are happier to know more about a brand. And WeChat is more effective in converting current customers, so a loyalty program. In terms of consumer habit of purchasing in app, both WeChat and Douyin has already established their position as a social commerce platform. However, Red is still new to that, and will recommend brand to wait and see. So it's more about find the best suit for your channel. And considering most of the attendees here are from supplement industry, we think that Douyin will be actually a good option, because Douyin is best for products less than 200 RMB, so less than around 30 USD. In this price range, people are more likely to buy on Douyin. And Red, as we mentioned before, is not mature yet as an e-commerce platform, but we recommend you to do some seeding or do some branding here on Red, because then you can drive this traffic to either Douyin or drive your traffic to WeChat and then convert them to loyal customers. So how do we exactly do that? We'll get started with KOL seeding. So typical KOL collaboration starts with gifting. So we'll identify influencers that match with your brand. We'll gift products to them and get free exposure in exchange. Then if some KOL are performing really well, we will arrange paid campaigns with them and stay in touch and maintain a good relationship even after the campaign. So here we suggest a mix of seeding and gift campaigns, because seeding, as we mentioned before, it has a really important long-term branding effect, because it is how you can boost your mentions or post on Red, which later will play a very important role in consumers' purchasing decision. And paid campaign is more for short-term sales. So if you want to see short-term returns or short-term ROI, paid campaign would be a good option. So in general, it's good to combine those two. So we have a more long-term effect and short-term effect. So for example, this is a case study we did with Hunter Boots. With gifting to 40 KOLs per month, we generated 20K worth of marketing value. So this amount is, for example, if you want to collaborate with these influencers by paid campaign, this is the amount we should pay. So as you can see, seeding is a smart way to start engaging with KOLs and start to get traffic. In terms of paid campaign, so this is a case we did with a French handbag brand. With 7K USD investment, we got 70 USD worth of sales with a 1,000 ROI. And also the average order value is quite high. And in this case, you can see the average order value is quite low or mid-low, but we still have a very positive campaign ROI of 430%. So we can sell either expensive or relatively cheap products. The idea is just to find the correct KOL for this. Then live streaming. So live streaming has become a new way for shopping and entertainment. So a lot of Chinese celebrities, talk show stars, idols, they are doing live streaming for sales. And many brands, Chinese brands or Western brands, they are doing their own live streamings, some with a plot as if you were watching a traditional Chinese series. And some CEO, they even participate in live streaming themselves to engage with the followers. So in terms of what category for live streaming, food and beverage is actually the second largest category for live streaming on Douyin and Kuaishou, because the price range is adequate for the platform. Also, you don't actually get a lot of refund in this vertical compared to fashion and apparel. So it's good to try live streaming as an option. So for example, we did this live streaming with a jewelry brand called Shomao, and also got very good campaign ROI of 483%. More importantly, we see a very positive conversion rate of 6%, which is higher than most of the e-commerce or traditional website selling. Social ads. So again, it's about selecting the most appropriate ad platform that match with your objective. So for example, if you just want to get exposure to reach as many customers as possible, WeChat is the best one because of the lowest CPM. But if you want to get engagement or clicks, Red is the best because of the lowest CPC. Red and Ocean Engine. Ocean Engine is the advertising platform, including Douyin and including other apps from ByteDance group. So Red and Ocean Engine has the highest CTR and engagement. And because Ocean Engine also have the highest daily time spent, so people spend more than 2 hours typically on Douyin each day. Because of this, users tend to accept Douyin ads more easily than other platforms, because Douyin ads is more like a short video itself. So it's fun, it's eye-catching, so people won't feel annoyed when they watch the ads. In terms of retargeting, all the platforms can do retargeting campaign except Red. Red is still quite basic in terms of advertising capacity. However, even if it's just one platform, the cost of advertising really depends on your targeting strategy. Like for example, in this case, this is a WeChat campaign. We separated the audience into new audience reached by interest and behavior, and users who enter the store and purchase. These two are retargeting campaign. So as we can see here, users who purchased before has the best ROI, but because the data volume is so small, it contributed less revenue compared to the users who enter the store or the store visitors. The store visitors also have a really good ROI of 6.7. But however, if once you amplify your audience, the ROI quickly decreased to less than 1. So the learning here is like WeChat is a good platform for retargeting campaign once you get the customer data. But if your goal is to reach and get new audience, new customers, there are better platforms for this. For example, Red or Douyin, because on WeChat it's very hard to convert a new customer with advertising. Okay, so here are some case studies that we did with multiple brands and social engagement. In the end, community management is essential to keep your customer engaged and keep a good impression of your brand. So we, apart from typically answering the posts or the comments that mention your brands, we also do this kind of engagement campaign. So typically is in form of a lottery. So in this case, without any advertising spend, we generated more than 15K engagement. So the algorithm of Red is kind of similar to Douyin or TikTok. So if the system detects that there's a increase in comments, like, and bookmark, the platform will give more traffic to the post. So this is how we create a rival post on Red. And this engagement campaign so quickly boosted our awareness and boosted the sales. So we see a 70% sales increase on our WeChat store. In terms of private traffic, this is where WeChat is the best at. As we mentioned before, with only 1% of brand followers, you can contribute 5% of the total sales. So meaning like these VIP customers, they are 5 times more valuable than your normal customers, and you really want to keep them engaged and happy. Okay, so this is the last part about logistics. So most of our clients, they work with DHL for cross-border logistics. So when the customer places an order, the brand will prepare for the parcel and then DHL pick up. When it arrives at custom, if the value is less than around 150 USD, the parcel will be cleared immediately and sent to a final customer. But if the value is more than 1,000 RMB, there will be a tariff or a cross-border tax. So it depends on how many items you have. We will either proceed it as a personal item, or will proceed with a broker declaration. Also note that if there's any gifts contained in the parcel, it also count as an item. So comparing the logistic of different social media channels, because on Tmall you have the option of Tmall Global Flagship Store and Tmall Mini Store. In terms of WeChat, it will be WeChat Mini Program Store. In this case, brand have to manage all the logistic. So we'll recommend DHL. That works better than STO in most of the cases. And the estimated arrival really depends on the brand, because it depends on how fast you ship the products and how fast you handle the custom clearance. For Douyin cross-border store, Douyin, it is a must to collaborate with official Douyin logistic partner, in this case, YTO. And Douyin is quite efficient, so typically the customer will receive in 4 days after the shipping. And since we are talking about cross-border, you actually don't need a Chinese bank account if you open a WeChat mini program store with our solution, because with WeChat cross-border payment, you can easily receive the Chinese customers' payments in RMB or Chinese yuan, and then automatically convert into the local currency, so you receive in your own currency. And moreover, if you are using Shopify or Magento, we actually have this integration with this e-commerce platform. So we will synchronize the WeChat orders with your Shopify. So meaning synchronize the product information, the inventory, the fulfillment information, and the taxes, etc. And then with our API, we can synchronize all that with our WeChat mini program. So it's very easy to set up an official WeChat channel for you. There are very few service providers who can do this, and we are one of them. Okay, so key takeaways for today. I know it's a lot of information, but just to wrap it up, Red is the best platform for brand discovery. Is where you want to be for the awareness and the consideration funnel. And WeChat is the best for loyalty platform. About how to promote your product and your brands, you can leverage KOL seeding, KOL campaign, or even live streaming to boost sales. And in the end, selling to China via cross-border is not as difficult as it looks, and you will not need a Chinese entity or a bank account to do that. Okay, thanks for your attention. And if you have any questions, queries, please feel free to reach out to us by the info email, or also feel free to go to our website and submit a form, and we'll get back to you within 2 days. Thanks again for your attention, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
So we have 2 speakers left. Thank you all so much for sticking in there. These are not long presentations. They're from our sponsors and partners at Informa. So let me welcome Johnny Lai. She's a business development specialist for Asia, and she will talk about Informa's offerings. She's got a lot of great shows. If you're going to enter China market, there's a lot of great expos you want to attend over there to get your products. So let's welcome Johnny to the stage.
Thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate everybody that stick around. Let's see. Okay. My name is Johnny. I'm the business development specialist for our Natural Product Expo portfolio as well as supply side portfolio. I mainly work with all our clients in Asia. Today, I appreciate this opportunity to give everybody a brief introduction of Informa's shows and offerings in Asia within our health and nutrition network. So everybody's really familiar with New Hope. Who is Informa? In case everybody don't know, Informa is our parent company. Back in 2016, Informa acquired New Hope, and in 2018, it acquired UBM. Now, Informa is the #1 organizer for exhibitions in the world. We have about over 550 exhibitions and conferences within 15 specialist markets. And as you can tell from this ecosystem that we're shown here, we work with suppliers, retailers, investors, marketers, service providers, distributors, and manufacturers. Basically, everyone professionally in this health and nutrition market. We try to achieve our goal, which is bring more health to more people. So the first show I would like to give a brief introduction is HPA-China. It's co-locating with Healthplex Expo and Natural and Nutraceutical Product China. So the latter two has really long name, and we can combine them and call HNC China. This is a show happened in June 22nd through 24th in Shanghai and NECC Hall. And with the HIFI more focused on ingredients and HNC focused on finished products, with this show co-locating, it becomes China's one-stop shop for the food and health industry. In 2021, although it was imposed by pandemic, HPA-China was actually taking place very successfully. We had over 71,000 visits from attendees, and the data is shared for both shows. So why are China having such strong performance at these shows? I listed some reasons here, but in addition, I would also like to provide some of the background from Chinese unique environment. The growth of our key consumer group for health and nutrition products in China are middle-aged and elderly. The population in 2016 for this age group was 231 million people, and it will be 437 million by 2050. Another factor is the younger consumer, or we call them millennials, are more concerned with a healthy outward appearance. The rise in income for average Chinese family gives a lot more purchasing power, especially to be spent on health and nutrition products. Unfortunately, some of the reason that increases the spending is also caused by lifestyle-related diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. These diseases have increased ninefold in one generation in China. In addition to all those reasons, Chinese government has also been giving strong support for the industry. So these are the categories for the products that's being shown at HIFI and HNC. And I also have the visitor sources here that breaks down the type of visitors that come to the show. Please keep in mind that those are shared by both FIHI and HNC, so the visitors are going there for the one-stop shop. Next show is HPA-China. It's overlapping 2 days with HNC and HIFI. It's also in Shanghai, taking place between June 21st through 23rd, but it's on a different expo hall. So just for anybody who's interested, it will be a very great one trip, because between the two conference halls, there will be shuttle bus take you traveling between. CPHI's offerings are here. I'm not going to go into too much for CPHI because it's more pharmaceutical related. Rather, I would like to talk more about Next China, which is co-locating with CPHI. As you know, CPHI is Asia's leading pharmaceutical show. And by co-locating with CPHI, Next China, which is Natural Extract China, was able to share the 50,000 professional visits. They are from 120 plus countries. And most importantly, 28% of the visitors are C-level executives and general managers. 48% of the middle level 48% of the attendees are middle level and project managers. This chart gives a little illustration of the visitors' growth for both CPHI and Next China. As you can tell, not just number-wise, but geographically, it has grown tremendously. Please keep in mind this data was pulled from CPHI 19, so it is pre-pandemic data. But also you can see like just the number of visitors from 2016 to 2019, it was increased by 225%. Next show we're going to introduce briefly is FI Vietnam. If anybody who's interested in the food ingredient industry within Vietnam, Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos in the neighborhood, this is a must-go show. It is the biggest gathering of the F&B ingredients professional in Vietnam. Now, why Vietnam? Why FI Vietnam? A few key factors are Vietnam's GDP growth. Number one is their GDP growth in 2020 was 6.5%. And actually between 2015 through 2020, the annual growth are averaged at 10.9. And for Vietnam, it's also the top 3 highest F&D industry growth rates. One key factor is the food processing is one of the industries that Vietnam government is prioritizing on its growth plan. So all these factors contribute to about 5,500 attendees, and among them, 69% has decision power. Next show is Jakarta, FI in Jakarta, Indonesia. It takes place in September between 7th to 9th. So why Indonesia? Well, Indonesia, Jakarta, is one of the fastest growing F&B market in the world. Also, Indonesia has the world's 4th largest population and is the 3rd largest, fastest growing economy in the G20. With the world consume 41% more processed food compared to 5 years ago, Indonesia is planning to be the #1 exporter for the food and beverage industry at a global level by 2030. We are expecting about 20,000 attendees, and among them, 61% has the decision-making power. Next show briefly is HI Korea. HI Korea is has a product focus of functional and natural ingredients. The show is going to co-locate with CPHI Korea. I apologize. It's more on functional food additives, and it's also co-locating with the CPHI Korea and share the 6,000 attendees. Among them, 77% visitors have the purchasing power. Next show is our VitaFoods Asia. I don't know if you have been to the beautiful Marina Sands Expo in Singapore. 2019 was VitaFoods Asia's best show. It's a very successful edition with almost 380 global suppliers, 7,000 visitors from 78 visiting countries. One key factor is the healthcare spending in Asia Pacific region is anticipated to double by 2050. So this VitaFoods Asia, we have both ingredients and finished products. Next show briefly is in Japan, in Tokyo, October 12th through 14th. It is also co-locating with Food Ingredients for Taste, Safety and Technology Japan, and the Food, I'm so sorry, the word is Food Long Life Japan. In a post-COVID-19 environment, all Informa events will continue to prioritize the health and safety of our colleagues and customers. We have Informa All Secure documents that we welcome everybody to check. It adds in a further layer of best practice standards and guidelines. And before everybody head out to the show, you're welcome to check all the websites for the updates, as well as checking their government's travel sites to ensure the quarantine, the travel ban, or if there's anything. I think more and more countries are open, and we sincerely welcome everybody to exhibit or visit our show in Asia. Thank you very much for listening to this presentation.
Okay, thank you, Johnny. Thank you so much. And we as an association cooperate with FI Asia in China a lot, so we've been to that show many times. Very good show. Our final speaker today is our friend Shelley Sapson, Director of Market Integrity from Informa Markets, and she's going to talk a little bit about how companies coming to the U.S., how they need to prepare and things to think about when they come here to present. Shelley, welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to be really quick because I know it's almost dinner time and people have places to go, but I will let you know quickly what I do. I lead our Market Integrity Group, and that includes our Natural Products Expo Standards program, our Supply Side Compliance program, and then we also have a regulatory consulting program for businesses that are coming into the U.S. So we are focused on businesses that are entering or operating in the U.S. market. So I want to share some statistics. These are from our Nutrition Business Journal. They are U.S.-oriented. You've heard a lot today about what's happening in China. I want to share with you what we're seeing here post-COVID. These figures are from very, very late in 2020. So you can see the peak when COVID happened and the increase in the dietary supplement business. And I think this is a good indicator of, these figures are a really good indicator of what happened in the U.S. with COVID, and they may be helpful for you in determining what may also be happening in China. If you look over on the right, you can see the different areas where we are seeing a real focus. And one of the takeaways that I heard today was how in China they are moving from single ingredient dietary supplements to blends. And that's very much what we're seeing. If you look at this slide here, oh, excuse me, I moved mine, but not yours. There we go. So this shows a real focus in immunity boosting. There's a 51% increase here in immunity boosting supplements, and then rest and de-stress, 36% increase, and then adaptogens at 32%. So these are significant trends that we are seeing here that may also be applicable as you're looking to do business in China. So the piece that I'd really like to talk about is integrity. There we go. So one of the reasons that China is such an attractive market is because of its size. But the other thing that's really compelling are the millennials who are purchasing and who are so interested in health. And the cross-border e-commerce has been something that's growing really fast. And one of the things that we've noticed is if you look on the internet, you'll see all sorts of businesses saying it's really easy to get into cross-border e-commerce. I encourage you to go to Jeff. It actually is, I think, not easy to do that unless you work with someone like him who can really help you with that process. But what we've seen is that when you decrease barriers to entry and you make it easier to get into a market, you see a lot of businesses who have less experience. And one of the things that we try to do across our events is to preserve that integrity, because right now, foreign brands they command a great deal of respect. So it's very advantageous to maintain that. So we're able to work not only with Natural Products Expo or supply side, but we also work with our brands like Natural and Organic Asia to try to highlight brands that are really promoting integrity and quality supply. So one of the things that I wanted to share here, let me get that to the right place. One of the things I wanted to share was this idea that if you're going to sell on Tmall, for example, you have to meet the requirements that Tmall sets up as well. And one of those is making sure that you meet the safety and quality requirements from the country of origin where you're bringing your products in. And that's where we can really help. When businesses want to come to our show, for example, we have an application process. And while I can't speak to Tmall's requirements or their enforcement, I can tell you that when businesses apply to us, 82% of dietary supplement manufacturers don't get in the first time. We work with them so that everybody's able to get in. But the first time round, there's enough non-compliance that we work through with them what needs to be changed in order to actually exhibit at the event. So being able to get those kinds of things resolved before you're moving the product over to another country is important and something that we can help with. If you're interested in trends information, we also have our NBJ. A number of businesses are very interested in finding out that. It's actually a really valuable resource in the industry for the dietary supplement manufacturers. I've got the resources up there for you, and happy to share that if anyone would like that list. But if you're interested generally about our shows, Gianni is a fantastic resource. She's both very knowledgeable about it and respected here and abroad. And of course, it's our pleasure to be working with Jeff. By doing that, we're able to support the community, whether they're exhibiting here or they're exhibiting abroad. So please do reach out if you would like any more information about our resources or about market-ready compliance or our shows generally. And thank you so much, Jeff. It's a pleasure. I hope you all have a good evening.
Okay, thank you, Shelley, so much. Again, thank you all for hanging in there with us. I know it was a very long event, lots of information, and everyone's hungry, wants to get going to dinner. So have at it. Have a great show. This, again, I'm so excited to be here. This is great. This is my first in-person show in like 2 years. So everyone, all the best. Take care. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll be happy to answer you. Thank you.